right, everybody, welcome back to The Move, brought to you by Patron Tequila. We'll name our Patron of the day. I got one. We have a different one. George and I have a different Patron.
We do.
Covering Paris-Roubaix, a bike race that started in 1896. Think about that.
That's crazy.
I mean, imagine the technology in 1896 riding over those cobbles. Like it's hard to fathom.
And before we get too into it, we got to say hi to all the people here at Hotel Domestique. Hello.
Yeah. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah, we're super excited to have the podcast here at Hotel Domestique. We're starting the Lance We Do Camp tonight, which a lot of our guests have come in early just for the podcast this morning. And just wanted to welcome everybody to Hotel Domestique. It's a small property. If you haven't been, I encourage people to come check it out. We have a ton of great amenities, world-class cycling, fleet of BMWs out there. It's just a great spot. So I'm
Is
super
this a
excited.
paid ad read or what's,
It is.
what's happening
It's paid.
here?
I had to pay him a little bit of money for this.
At which point does the wire transfer hit?
and when I noticed walking in, there's a lot of bikes out there that are almost as worth as much as the Beamers.
Yeah, we got bikes, we got BMWs, we got it's not only just a cycling hotel. There's a lot more to do than just cycling, but obviously we do provide some world-class cycling.
Really good place to hold up at gunpoint if somebody's ambitious and wants to show up in a moving truck.
What?
Just throwing that out there.
What are you talking about?
All right, let's get back to Roubaix.
No, let's actually get back to we'll get to Roubaix in a second, but we have to take care of a little bit of business. So this episode of The Move is brought to you again by Road ID. As I said last week, what a great company and just a great idea. Like if you're out riding and are unfortunately hit or something happens to you and all your vitals, all the contact information, all of these things, I mean, it's just so logical that you would have a Road ID on. Don't get offended. I know it's yellow. Just an amazing idea. And so, and also, as I said last week, what a great supporter of not just cycling, but professional cycling for many, many years. I know you've had a relationship with them for a long time, George.
As I look around the room, many of the people here for the camp are wearing them, and it just makes sense.
Yeah,
you
of course.
got that emergency contact information. If there's some sort of allergy, if you were, God forbid, in an accident, you might, get better care and better help faster. I know people put their insurance information on there. It's amazing
blood type,
how much information they can get on that little space. It just makes sense.
Yep. And here we are on the 14th today. So on April 16th, massive site-wide sale on roadid.com. So in just 2 days. So check it out in 2 days. roadid.com.
So we go back.
I've never said that word site-wide.
Yeah.
No.
Site-wide. Everything's on sale.
Yeah.
So as you brought up, 1896, imagine riding what they were riding in Roubaix.
Yeah.
And a little history on it. We don't go too much into the history, but I know you were there many, many times. You probably don't know anything about the city, right?
Other than it's a bit dreary and depressing when you're leaving it after a bad result, but it's it's usually it's a tough place. It's sort of if you grow up cycling in Roubaix, you're definitely a hard cyclist.
There was just an interesting article about the town of Roubaix that we were digging into. That surprisingly, as Americans watching it, you would think it's a sexy place, and it has.
I never thought it was sexy.
Well, it has 20% or 30% poverty, 20% unemployment. It's an old textile town. And it's like this race coming through must mean everything to them.
Imagine the juxtaposition between Paris and Roubaix. You have Paris, one of the sexiest cities in the world, and then you end up in this town or this small city that's really going through a tough time. So yeah, you're right. I mean and the tour. I think the tour gives it a nod every few years. They like to go through there, but yeah, I mean it's the numbers are pretty staggering when you talk about 20% unemployment.
But the first year they had a couple of the mill owners put together prize money, which was equivalent of 7 months of what a factory worker would make. Most people were working in a factory then, and that was probably a really big payday at that time. But anyhow, I just thought that was interesting, and then they combined with Lavello and to put Roubaix on the map,
Yep.
which we all
Yep.
know about, but
Yep.
didn't know that brief history.
Prize money now is insignificant. It's probably, I mean, when I was racing, I think it was 25,000 to win.
Is that
One of the
right?
biggest
No.
one-day races
Oh,
in the
really?
world. So obviously there's a lot of
I
bonuses.
thought you were going to
involved
say
in
it was
team contract.
700 euros still.
No, it's like, but it's still super insignificant
Yeah.
for it being one of the biggest, or if not the biggest one-day race in the world.
Yeah.
But that certainly translates into endorsement money.
No, absolutely. The
and
contracts and the bonuses that
contracts.
teams provide is a
Yeah.
lot bigger than that, but the
Yeah.
prize money is not very significant.
And as we pointed out in the preview show a couple of weeks ago, races like this, the weather is so critical. And today was I wouldn't say it was a perfect day. It was a little chilly, but no rain, no moisture, no just a big dust storm basically. So that helped the guys along. Us fans, we like it when it's raining or snowing and everybody's falling off. But for those guys, it was pretty straightforward. And you got to give it to Philippe Gilbert. I mean, it's hard to not say that he's had a Hall of Fame career. He's 36 or 37 years old. He's won basically every classic except Milan-San Remo.
Yep.
I mean, how many guys can say they've won Paris-Roubaix and Liège and Amstel and Lombardia?
Yeah.
Lombardia, I mean, Liège is a very, very difficult race, very hilly. Lombardia is even tougher. I mean, this
Lombardia is
race.
a mountain race.
Those are climbs.
Yeah,
I mean, Liège, they're hills, and Tour Lombardia are straight up mountains. And so, what an impressive result and heads up result. Like he was just on it all day long.
Yeah, I was super impressed. I think he also called it out in the winter that he wanted to focus on Roubaix after winning, like you said, most of all the other monuments. The fact that he said it early on in the winter that he, really wanted to key off Roubaix and pulled it off and won on the team that he's on, which has basically dominated the whole classic season.
Deceuninck.
So for him to go out there, get in the air, like relatively early move, and just keep going from there he just rode an incredible race.
By the way, that team had 4 out of the top 8.
Yeah.
4 out of the top 8. I mean,
And it's the same team that I
That's a
raced against.
beatdown.
And many times was with 4 guys out of a group of 6 or 7, me against 4 of them. So historically they've always been up there in the classics, and they never seem to miss a beat.
You have some experience riding with Gilbert.
Gilbert.
You have a relationship. Tell us about him. What we
We
don't
were
know.
teammates in 2012 on BMC. Just a great guy. I lived I would train with him in Monaco. He was in Monaco. I was in Villefranche, and his training technique, I'm sure it's changed. We have Bobby Julik in here who coached him for a while, and I'm sure it's kind of evolved since then. But literally, we'd go out for 4 to 6 hours, ride relatively easy. He's a really practical joker, always joking around. And then every once in a while, he'd go as hard as he could up a 600 or 700 meter climb and time himself for about a minute to 90 seconds. And literally, it'd be 900 watts. And it's like the only rider I've ever ridden with that can ride me off his wheel on a 1 minute climb. Like he had that much power. But it was just random. He'd just do it every once in a while, and you'd see him doing it in the races. When he attacks, he's got just incredible power, out of the saddle power that not many pro cyclists out there have.
So when you were watching things go down, and when there were 5, 6 guys for some time, were you sitting there going, "Watch Gilbert"?
I knew he'd be a factor. I was actually calling out Sagan. My game's a little bit off. I got to be honest. I haven't really been predicting the guys as good as I did last year.
Yeah, I was going to say, man.
He looked good. I mean, his power. He just kept attacking and kept riding away from the guys. And it was interesting to see Sagan. He made one of the early moves about 70K to go and made that split from the group of about 40 guys. Which you see Sagan going, it's not like one of those things like, well, somebody else was going. If you have the legs, you're going.
Yeah.
So he had the legs there, but didn't completely
He's off. I mean, I've been saying it all year. I mean, he's and I'll stress it again. I mean, I think anybody that has a tough time in their personal life is going to have a tough time in their professional life as a cyclist, or really in any occupation. But he's not, and he even admitted last week after Flanders, he said, I'm not the same guy anymore.
Yeah.
And so, we might be seeing sort of the beginning of the end here. And having said that, I mean, he's still wicked talented, and the sport needs him. So hopefully he stays up there. But he's off. He's off. He's not as off as Trek. This Trek team. They killed it today. They got 27th and 28th.
Oof. Wow.
I mean, this is a team that's, I say it every week. Like, I don't know what's up, but
it's going to be a quiet.
QuickStep has 4 out of the top 8, and you have a $15 million team that gets 27th and 28th.
Yeah.
You guys talked quite a bit when we did the Classics preview. You know, certain teams that are Classics teams have to get results before we shift into the Grand Tours. So what are your thoughts on, with 2 big races left, 2 of the really, the ones the sponsors want to see them on, Liège and Amstel Gold? Like, what are some teams do? How desperate are they? Or is Deceuninck-QuickStep just going to clean up on these 2 and everyone else is left with nothing?
The next set of races, Amstel Gold and Liège, is basically you bring in a whole different team for those races. So I'd be surprised if QuickStep, Deceuninck keeps dominating as much as they have. But a lot of teams like Lotto Jumbo, Trek, CCC, they're going to have to, get some results coming up here in the next 2 weeks, or otherwise.
Yeah, but George, QuickStep. Then you bring in Alaphilippe.
Yeah,
he's got
exactly.
These. I know he crashed in the Basque Country last week, but they have a whole nother arm of the franchise there that can compete in those races, and so.
But I think then you bring
the morale,
the
team the morale within the team is just sky high.
They got momentum now. They're going.
Yeah.
And they'll be a factor for sure. But you bring in Movistar and you bring in Lotto Jumbo. You bring in a lot of the classics, the climbing classics guys, and you'll see some different guys up there for sure.
And we all got to introduce to a new name, which is exciting when all of a sudden you're like, whoa, who's this? And we're all Googling it. Nils Politt, a German rider, young guy.
Yeah.
Who took it right into the velodrome. And it's like being 25, 26, like that's pretty remarkable to be in that position.
Well, he's not nobody. I mean, he was 7th last year. Keep in mind too, he obviously has the potential and it focuses on these races. Dirk Demol is his director, who's sitting in the car. I mean, Dirk Demol knows Paris-Roubaix. He knows literally every stone on the course. Mm-hmm. So having him in your ear, it has to be a tremendous advantage and great result for him. Probably we probably saw some kid who's going to be a winner in the future of this race.
And he came off the Tour of Flanders. I believe he was 5th place last weekend, so he had a great Tour of Flanders. He's obviously confident this week, and just did an incredible result.
I think even the most casual fan, we all know when it comes down to the sprint finish, velodrome or not, usually not. You don't want to be in first position. You want to be in second. Can you lay out, since this, you guys, like, how does that play out? Like,
who turned on the jazz music? Can you hear the jazz music? Did that just fire up, or has that been on the whole time?
Kind of soothing, I thought.
I feel like I just started.
Seriously, how does that play out when you want to be in second? You're forced. They did have a guy about 18 seconds behind so they couldn't dilly-dally around too much. But how does that usually play out, and how do you get in that second position?
Well, it just depends on the situation. Today's situation, Gilbert had his teammate coming up, so he's got the excuse going, look, if you don't want to be in first wheel, we can just stop, and then my teammate's going to be here, and then your chances of winning are even less, and you're probably going to end up third and not second. So he was in the driver's seat there, so to speak, and. Yeah. Politt, I think I was surprised that he worked with Gilbert till the end, but he was clearly confident. Like I said, he got 5th place in Flanders, which was amongst some of the best sprinters in the world. It was a group of 40, and he still beat some of the Michael Matthews. He beat some really fast guys. So I think he still thought there was a chance to win. I know when I got in there in the velodrome, very similar situation. It was myself, Tom Bonin, and Fletcher, and I knew I was fast. I knew that Bonin was probably faster than me, but it's not much you can do. We're rolling around at 27, 28 miles an hour after 170 miles on the bike. It's not like you're going to attack and get 50 meters up the road and go 29 miles an hour. Everybody's dead at that point, and you just got to save your matches for the end. And he's not going to be disappointed with his result. I can guarantee you that.
I always bring this up. I don't know. Maybe I like the business side of it somewhat, but for this young guy. Contract-wise, this changes the game for him. Sponsors, contracts, like your life starts to change.
Yeah,
right?
If he's 24, last year he got 7th place, being 24 years old, he's got the attention of a lot of teams already. I don't know what his current contractual situation is, whether he's got a 1-year deal or a 3-year deal. My guess is, being a young rider, showing that kind of talent, he probably signed a couple 2 to 3 year deals. So we'll see if he's going somewhere else next year. But he's definitely caught the eye of many teams.
It was a chaotic first 100K. For those of you that got up and watched a lot of the earlier coverage.
Always is, right?
Yeah, always is.
I
would be chaotic too. Like if those first sections of cobbles are just so nerve-wracking and scary, quite frankly, that guys just want to get away. They want to get in the break so that they can roll into the cobbles without having to fight for position and be scared as shit. Like that's just the way these dudes. I would do the same thing.
And pretty much, I'd say 90% of the teams, the team meeting in the morning or the night before is like, if there's a breakaway, we need to have 1 or 2 guys in there. So they're all tasked. Every team wants to be represented in that breakaway, which makes it really hard for the breakaway to form, which makes the speed super high. And apparently it was a lot of crosswinds in the beginning. So you saw with 140, 50K to go when we turned it on, the peloton was already just in pieces. People were everywhere. So it made it a really tough start.
How nasty is that dust? Like when you watch on TV, this is like dust everywhere. I mean,
it's pretty nasty. Some of the sections you have a hard time seeing. You're just kind of looking at the wheel in front of you, but you can't see 100 meters up the road because there's so much dust.
But does that dust start to just fill your lungs though? Like, are you coughing up dirt for a couple days?
It's not as bad as the pollen right here in South Carolina. I'll tell you that.
But it has to. It's like. That's the thing with Roubaix. You're either breathing in dust or you're fighting mud and slosh.
It's affecting everybody the same. So
even if you're in the front, the motos are kicking up.
Yeah, it's that's why it's one of the hardest races in the world.
Wow. Yeah. We didn't see any Americans finish. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know how many started, but there wasn't one American finisher, which I think we always like to talk about where the sport is in our country, and so compare and contrast to the huge country of Australia that had 5 finishers. It's just Taylor Finney was in the race. We saw, I believe Christian showed us that. I guess he had a mechanical or something. He was on the side of the road and his team car drove past him.
What's your best? It's only a guess. What's your best guess as to why the team car wouldn't stop and get him back?
I think that George can speak to it better, but it's everybody's nervous, not just the riders, but the directors and the mechanics, and everybody there is just on sort of overload, and so it was just clearly it was an oversight, but not a good look, and it just again it adds to just this underlying theme of where are we as a country in cycling, in the classics, in the Grand Tours, and so that's unfortunate for him. I'm sure he's not.
Yeah, the race is not only stressful for the riders; it's super stressful for the directors. Yeah. There's just so much going on. People. You're trying not to. The drivers are trying not to run over the fans. They're trying to see where their riders are. Obviously, they were really focused on Ben Mark. So who knows what was happening with Ben Mark? But it was definitely an oversight. I found an interesting fact, which I didn't know. I don't know if you know, Lance. A lot of these directors now have iPads and computers in their car where they have this new software where instead of like the old days, they'd be reading the map saying, "Okay, guys, 3 kilometers, we're going to turn left." The software is actually telling them what's coming up. Which way they're turning, what section's coming up, and it kind of just reads it out to them. So that's helping them a lot.
So everybody has this?
Not everybody. I think my guy told me about half the teams have this software now.
So you talk about software changes. I mean, technology changes. The bikes are so different from 20 years, just 20 years ago. Were you observing that and thinking about how different the sport is from 15, 20 years ago?
So I was telling Lance, I ride disc brakes here, and I could take it or leave it. I hadn't really noticed that much of a difference. There's a big difference, but I rode disc brakes last weekend in Tour of Flanders at the Tour de Flanders Grand Fondo, 16,000 riders, and I get a little excited. Some guys try to pass me on some of the climbs, so I'm like, no, this ain't happening. So I did a little bit of racing, but I'll tell you what, when you ride disc brakes in those roads and the cobblestones, the demands in braking and braking late and trying to pass riders in the last minute before corners in these sections it's a game changer. And you saw today, at least the top 5 riders were on disc brakes. I think probably, I don't know how many of the teams are on them, but it's clearly the way to go in these races.
Well, and if it rains, it's 100x. I mean,
exactly.
It's the only thing that's going to stop you when it rains.
Yeah.
I mean, the classic, traditional brakes won't stop.
Yeah, the other thing we mentioned too was
time release. Like if you got to stop in like 20 seconds, start braking now.
You're a big tubeless guy on the road now as well, and we were wondering. You've mentioned that.
You
a bunch.
know,
that was a question. I don't know, Dave. Do I have tubeless? I got tubeless.
He's got tubeless. But I was wondering. A lot of the teams are on the tubeless tires as well, but apparently they aren't because of the risk of the tube. The actual clincher rolling off the tire at high speed if they do get a flat.
Yeah.
They all train with them, but a lot of the guys are worried about the tire rolling off. So, I love riding tubeless. I feel like it rolls really well. But I never thought about that, where you're kind of bombing these corners. If that thing does go flat, the chances of that tire coming off are greater and crashing and become increased.
It has to be less. I mean, they might be riding faster, maybe, but it's always going to be physically demanding, but the pounding has to be less than you guys took 15, 20 years ago on cobbles. Like, the bikes flex better, bigger tires.
I had a rock shock on one of my Eddie Merckx bikes back in the day, which is.
We don't see bikes breaking, which you're accustomed to.
On steel bike with a rock shock.
I bet these bikes are stiffer now. I would think they're stiffer
because they're making the carbon stiffer and stiffer.
And the forks, the forks are straight. In the old days, we had like a swooping front, fork and.
But the tires are wider. They got disc brakes now. They have more clearance to have those wider tires, and they're able to. That really helps a lot on the cobblestones.
Yeah. Who was your patron of the day?
Gilbert. Super happy to see him win. He's a great guy, good friend of mine. He took the race by the horns. Did not wait for his teammates. Went super early. Was super aggressive. Rode like a champ and won it. I think it was great. It was an incredible race. I'm going to give this guy Wout van Aert my patron of the day. I mean, he had the worst luck, and he just kept, like we saw last week with Van der Poel, he just kept fighting back and fighting back. Next thing you know, he's back at the front of the race. I'm like, it was that I've never done the race, but I can only imagine how hard it is, not just physically but mentally, just to stay in there and keep plugging away and ultimately get back and put yourself in a position to win. I mean, you saw he paid dearly for bridging back up. Had he not had to have bridged up after those mechanicals in the crash, I mean, I think he would have been right up there with those guys. But I've been in that situation where you run out of gas in the last 10 miles of Roubaix. It is absolutely horrendous. And you saw he could not even react to anybody passing him. I've had one of my worst bonks in my career in Roubaix, and literally crawled to the finish line. I could not jump on anybody's wheel. It's the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah. I was wondering about that. Although it looked like a very healthy, fast sprint, those sprints at the end of Roubaix have to be exponentially slower than most sprints. Like, you stand up and your legs just have to be freezing.
Yeah, those guys don't have much left. I mean, it's just their legs are feeling like rubber at that point. But once you come onto that velodrome in the position to win, the adrenaline takes over. So you're not feeling much.
What's the slope of that velodrome? It's not very steep. I mean, a normal one is like 33 degrees, right? I mean, it's steep.
Yeah, it's steep.
That one, just by looking at it, it doesn't seem that.
I'm not sure what the slope is, but
You haven't been there?
I've been there, but I never measured the slope.
George is out there with it.
By the way, I mean, I just mentioned Mathieu van der Poel. I was excited to watch him race, and shows you how much I pay attention. He's not even in the race.
Yeah.
But because he's on a small team, this small Dutch team, they weren't invited to the race. So here you have a guy who could have completely changed the face of the race and animated the race, and his team didn't get the invite.
Yeah, his performance last weekend was remarkable.
Incredible.
What he did, bridging back to the front group and getting fourth place after, crashing right at the bottom of the Grandmont was something I'd never seen before. So I think he would have been clearly one of the favorites today.
We've talked. By the way, we're going to have Q&A here at the end for our audience. If you have a question, we'll have an opportunity for that. If you want to start thinking about something, we can do that. You've talked often about how things ebb and flows with. We mentioned No Americans finishing today. The programs ebb and flow. When there's people winning, a program grows, right? Of course, it's always going to be big in France and Belgium and Italy. The American programs of ebb and flow, the stars, the interest. This young German kid, the German programs went through a bit of a dip. Can we see this affect a whole country when they have something like this to get behind?
I mean, yeah. I don't know how a race like Paris-Roubaix resonates in Germany. I mean, the tour is obviously very important to them. They've been, they were spoiled for a long time with Team Telecom and Jan Ulrich, and so they know what it's like to win. Honestly, I don't know what how this registers there. But Germany's they've got a good young crop. I mean, not just Politt, but Eric Zabel's son is a fantastic talent. And
don't forget Degenkolb won the Roubaix stage of the Tour de France last year, so they're obviously he would have wanted more at Roubaix this year. He's probably one of the guys that got 27th or 28th, but
he got 28th.
He got 28th. So he's been there. He's won the race, and I think he's already brought some new fans in from Germany for sure.
I mean, when you say I don't know how important Roubaix is to Germans, here we have a hotel full of Americans watching Roubaix because of technology change. Like, my question is,
it's actually a great point, and I hate to interrupt like that, JB, but if you'll remember last year, did that small TV George had, and now we have, which by the way is still in there. That little TV is still in there, and so we have a bigger TV,
which he's returning to Best Buy tomorrow, I'm sure.
Did you? No. But and then also, but the data here is really slow. The race kept cutting out.
Oh, God.
He was so
now
stressed
it's not
out
the TV. Now next year I got to get a whole new.
I mean, I was just waiting for this thing to just go completely frozen during the sprint.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It did.
Disappointing all these people, all your fans.
Well, that's because Lance was sucking up all the bandwidth watching the Masters while we're trying to focus on watching Roubaix.
Speaking of that, I do need to check in.
No, I want to come back to that because technology's changed. We can stream these races. It wasn't that long ago. Dave and I were talking about it. You had to wait for World Cycling Productions to put out a video and buy it or go rent it. That wasn't that long ago, and now we all have this opportunity to stream them. My point is, can you see classics becoming a much bigger player for other parts of the world besides France and Belgium? We're taking an interest in it, where maybe we didn't before.
It's definitely helpful. I mean, I would encourage anybody to go over and watch one of these live and ride the sections, because it's the ultimate cycling experience to be able to ride those roads and know what the guys that did today, what they're going through.
George, tell the story of your neighbor in case people didn't listen to the preview show. The neighbor that you had that bet with over the forest of Ehrenberg, or whatever.
My neighbor, and already he was kind of upset that I brought it up last week, but I'll bring it up again. He bet me. He made me a couple different bets. One bet was a couple $100 that he can make it up to Quermont, and I got a video of it. He did not make it up to Quermont, or not the Quermont, the Koppenberg, which actually one of my friends in here made it up last weekend. Sully, good job. And then he also bet me. He bet me that if I gave him 2 minutes head start on the Ehrenberg section, which is less than a 2-mile section, 1.8 miles, that there's no way I can catch him. I caught him about halfway through. Also have a good video of that one.
So you're just making money.
Yeah, just making money. But it just goes to show you how technical and how difficult those cobblestones are. And it's just not, even though a lot of them are flat, it's very, very difficult to ride over that. And these guys, they make it look easy, but I can assure you it's far from easy.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any last thoughts on Roubaix before we move on to questions?
Well, I think you had a good question. Do you regret not ever racing Roubaix and helping your boy out at all?
Yeah, that was written in by Sean. Yeah, Sean wanted to know if you regret not doing it.
When you watch it today, like sitting here watching it, yes, you have regrets. But if you go back to those years of 99 to 05, we just never would have. I mean, it's too dangerous. There's too much risk associated with it. I mean, here we are in mid-April. You've got 2.5 months till the tour. I mean, if you fall off here and break the collarbone or get hurt, whatever, then you have real regret that you did it. And so, yes, it's easy to sit here now and go, God, I wish I would have done that. We got a little taste. I mean, we did a few of those tours had cobbles in there, so that was enough for me.
Yeah, he rode the cobbles well in those tours.
Yeah.
He did a good job.
Yeah.
Another question written in, and we'll get to your live ones here in a second. Hello, Lance and George. What will it take to get Lance, George, Christian, Dylan all together in Fort Worth? Well, we might as well throw Bobby into that too. He should show up too for the 2020 Grand Fondo Hincapie ride in Fort Worth.
I'm not going again if it's that windy. It was blowing 40. It was cold. It was, yeah.
It was beautiful the day before.
Yeah.
You just never know.
No.
Yeah.
But you got to get the bunch back together. Is what they're asking
but
about.
we're going to be here for the original Grand Fondo.
Yeah,
right?
October 20th. We'll all be here.
Another paid ad for you, my friend.
Come and check us out, October 20th.
All right, we're gonna at the end of this questions. We have 2 more big races ahead of us for the Spring Classics, but we have unraveled a microphone that's going to get passed around here. So questions, if you want to make your way over here to the microphone so we can get it on the show, that'd be great. Yeah, just grab it and go.
Oh, there it is.
All right.
Yeah,
I think
you're
it's good.
All right. So since we're going to be here for a few days and want to see you two talk trash for a few days, let's rewind the clock.
Oh boy.
20K to go. Both of you in your prime. Kind of like a 2-man break like we saw today on opposite teams. Who wins?
In Roubaix?
In
Come
Roubaix.
on. It's not even a question.
Both of you in your prime.
It's flat. It's flat. I could sprint better than him.
You crush him?
He'd crush me on any climb, but a flat road, come on. Corners,
I'll probably ride him off the wheel. You said it?
20K to go.
No.
Both of you in your prime.
Yeah. I don't stand a chance.
All right.
Is there any difference?
It's on.
It's good.
It's going to the podcast.
What the difference in terms of training that you guys did beginning 20 years ago versus today when you're not riding? I mean, how much cross training do you do if you're a professional rider and on the circuit every year? Not on the bike. What on the stuff?
Actually, Bobby would be. I don't know where Bobby is, but Bobby would be. He would be great to answer that. I don't know what these guys are.
A lot of the teams now they have
What
strength.
do you guys do?
We're not pros.
We did a
anymore.
lot.
Yeah.
Not on the bike.
A lot.
We do a lot of core training. Just during the thick of the season when you're training 5-7 hours a day. It's hard to do it every day, but definitely 2 to 3 days a week where you're at least doing maintenance. Because once your back goes and those muscles that you are using to stabilize that arm pedaling the bike, those are just as important. So a lot of these teams are really focusing on that.
That brings up a really good point because on the Forward podcast, when Lance interviewed Troy Aikman, which is one of the greatest athletes of all time, undeniably, you guys talked about something interesting, and he brought up if he had all of the science and care and technology and body work and cross training that they do today, he could have played another 5+ years.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel that way with what we know now?
Well, I think what Troy was speaking to was just this idea of functional training, so movement and pliability and flexibility, which look at Tom Brady. That's what he's done. Like he is who he is because of how serious he takes his training and pliability. It's the guys like Gumby, right? So in the day I didn't really think about those things. It was all about hours and hours and hours on the bike and then starving yourself off the bike. Yeah, that was the deal. And so
Starving yourself?
yeah, basic. Well,
you're burning 6,000 calories a day when you're riding, so.
It did. When you're racing the tour, you're burning that much. But if you're out on just a training, if this is say in April and you're out training, guys at this level are so efficient on the bike. They're not burning that much, and so the scale doesn't lie. So it just depends on what that scale said to you that morning. But you just have to, and it's all a numbers game, right? So how many calories you expend, and then how many calories you take in. And these guys are always trying to lose weight. We have to be as skinny and lean as possible. And unfortunately, there's a lot of days you go to bed really hungry.
How do you during the tour, though? How do you actually eat enough every day?
Well, then the tour, it's all bets are off. You can eat basically whatever you want. Yeah.
1 or 2 pounds makes a huge difference, over these hour-long climbs. Funny story, without fail, every year at the Tour de France, you weigh in, they do this huge medical checkup, and Lance would do his own thing because he'd have a bunch of press around him. He would text me like literally 30 minutes after the weigh-in for 7 years in a row. Was that scale right? Every year. Without a doubt. Every year he would text me 30 minutes after the weigh-in.
There's no way. There's no way.
What do you guys? Obviously, these guys are still competitive, not just with each
I'm
other,
not.
but with. Come on.
I'm not.
What are you guys doing cross-training health-wise? Now, I saw you on some kind of skis going uphill the other day.
Yeah.
So, what
That's
are you
called
doing
skinning.
now? That's different.
It's
What is it? I don't
Skinning.
even
It's
know
like
what that is.
like skinning or ski mountaineering. It's basically like hiking, right? So it feels like you're hiking. The skis have skins on the bottom of them, so they grab as the ski slides forward. As soon as you plant your foot, it grabs. And then, that particular skin is probably, I did get the Strava segment on that, speaking of competitive, 32 minutes. And then you take the skins off and you switch the binding. I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about, which I really don't.
Well, it's new. It's your first winter in Colorado.
Then you ski down. It's a big trend in the winter world, I guess I should say.
Are you doing anything? I know tennis is a thing for you, right?
I play tennis. I love it. I'm terrible at it, but I love it. And I feel super good for you to help
Move
keep
sideways.
you very fit. Move sideways. Very difficult. I used to watch tennis as when I was a professional cyclist and kind of be jealous because they would never play in the cold, in the wet, in the rain. They take breaks in between points. I go, God, this is the best sport ever. But it is super demanding, and I got a ton of respect for tennis players. It's a very, very, very tough sport and very hard on your body.
Any more questions from the audience? Get to the mic. Oh, you got it.
I'm
Go
going to
ahead.
interrupt this. This is a non-cycling question. This more to George than Lance, and a one-word answer is fine. What is the preferred laundry detergent in the Hincapie household?
Definitely OxyClean.
That's a great question.
This is also said with a potential endorsement deal for the move. Answer carefully.
You don't want to know the last time I did laundry. It was a very long, if ever. So George.
I said OxyClean. I said it's the one worder.
OxyClean?
Yep.
Well, Lance, you brought it up at the beginning. What's it going to take? Americans have great athletes. What's it going to take to have American cyclists get up to the level you guys were at when you were racing?
Yeah, it's just, we talk about it almost every week. It's just cyclical, and so right now we're in this period where, I guess you could also argue that we should be at the front of these races. A guy like Taylor Phinney should be winning Paris-Roubaix. Certainly has the potential to win Paris-Roubaix, has the engine to win Paris-Roubaix, now has the experience to win Paris-Roubaix, and Tour Flanders, the events like this. And so, I kind of follow Taylor just based on social media and what they show during the tour. It's almost like he's interested in other things. But as race fans and as fans of American cycling, it would be nice to see him at the tip of that spear, which I think he could be. But I think he's perhaps distracted.
I would agree. I mean, I was teammates with Taylor, and the amount of power he has and the skill he has on the bike, he definitely has everything it takes to win Paris-Roubaix. And I hope to see him get there. Obviously, this year wasn't his year, but he's got what it takes. He's got the power.
Do you think he's still standing on the side of the road?
Hopefully not.
I was thinking he gets started with making friends with the
knowing
team
him,
car.
he's probably just having beers with people, just chilling.
Right?
Yeah.
What's up, brah?
The other thing is,
He's a Grand Tour guy, so we'll see.
Yeah.
He's got a new team, new environment.
He'll be the Tour this year.
yeah, he'll be in the Tour.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But he the problem, or not the problem, but they'll have to pick between him or Rigoberto Urán. So
Yeah.
it's not like he's got soul. Yes, yeah.
No.
Or what about how do you feel about Lawson going into?
Lawson's riding great. I mean,
He is.
these classics coming up, Liège and Amstel, totally suit him, and obviously lives in Austin, and in very similar terrain, just short, punchy hills that he'll be well adjusted to, and done them a few times, so he has the experience.
Another question?
You guys briefly talked about Sagan not being in top form today, and Lance, you said that his personal life is probably affecting him. Mm-hmm. Do you think Bora will employ a sports psychologist to kind of help him get his psyche in shape before the tour?
I don't know that he is. I don't know that there's any counselor, psychologist that could work on. I mean, he's just a quirky dude. I think, and I don't think he's stressed about it. I think he's having fun. And look, personal stress, divorce, etc. is never good. I do think that's what his main problem is. Let's not forget he's also not a spring chicken anymore, and so. But I don't know what their plan would be.
On that note, did you guys either use any sort of sports psychology visits, books,
No.
tapes, hypnosis?
No, yeah.
Anything? Like, did
We
you
just
ever-
sat in the back of the bus and talked to each other. Music.
People, humans talking to each
Yes.
other. Huh. Tell me about that.
This is what they used to do in the old days.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone here at Hotel Domestique? Here we go.
Do you guys think, with all the Lance you mentioned, I bet you the bikes are harder to ride each year
Yeah.
as they get stiffer. Do you think they'll have set up any of the bikes willingly slower to be more comfortable, to do less damage on the body, to give them more energy at the end? Like, would they ever set up a slower bike?
I don't. No, I don't think so.
No, just
No.
because the sections in between the cobbles are just as important for the end result. So they're not going to impede them by doing that.
You know what I think is cool, and I mean I would totally do this if I was riding that race. Is that the remote brakes on the tops?
Van Aert had
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I mean,
I never did.
You never did that?
I had raced against guys that used it, but for me, it's just it'd be reteaching myself how to brake in a lot of ways, and I just instinctively I'm always going from here to brake, so it would have messed me up.
and no suspension. There's no. I didn't see one suspension.
I thought
system
those new
today.
Specialized bikes have some sort of dampeners in them.
I
didn't
saw
know
this
exactly
I saw this Johan Miseu Instagram post the other day he posted a picture of him winning Roubaix and then a picture of his bike.
Yeah.
Did you see this bike?
Yeah,
It looked like a. I don't even know what it looked like. It was terrible, but
Yeah.
that was full suspension, front and rear.
Yeah. That's not fun to ride in between the sections. You're feeling like you're riding
Yeah.
a boat.
Yeah.
And we've seen things come and go, and they tried suspension seat posts for a while. We don't see those anymore, do we? Kind of made their way out of it.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. All right.
A couple more shows coming up.
Yep.
We've got of the classics, Amstel and Liège. Do you guys want to? I know we did a classics preview, but now knowing more information,
I got one name for both of those races. He may win them both, but I don't know how anybody beats Alejandro Valverde. And his team is incredibly strong. You saw him in Flanders, bike race he's never done before. I mean, it's like me playing in the Super Bowl. Like he which is not ever going to happen. I don't know how you beat him in those races.
I would agree. Alejandro's looking great. I mean, I was super impressed that he got top 10 in his first Tour of Flanders ever. The most technical bike race out there, for him to go out there and get top 10. So he's clearly on top form, and he's got to be one of the top favorites.
Cool. Thank you, everyone here.
Thanks
Hotel
for showing up.
Domestique.
Yeah. Go Tiger.